Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. My name is indeed Thomas Jansen. I'm working now at the municipality of Dordrecht as a policy employee. And I know this is the last day of your Congress, and also I'm the last speaker of the day. So I'm not going to make it that difficult. I'm just going to give a short global presentation about what the municipality is about regarding water safety. And if you have any questions on more specific topics or want to know more, just contact us, me or the municipality in Dordrecht, and we'll give you more answers and we'll talk more about it. Just a quick glance at the content of my presentation. First, a general introduction to the municipality of Dordrecht. Then about the unembanked harbor area we have in the city, very old area, but not protected by dikes. Then the previous work and the current work Dordrecht has done on water safety. And finally, a little bit about the communication with inhabitants within the city on the subject of water safety. Well, very briefly, where Dordrecht is located in the Netherlands, in the red circle. Most of you are probably familiar with the idea where it lies, and also with the idea that just as a large part of the Netherlands, Dordrecht is located below sea level. And an added point to that is that Dordrecht is in the orange part, supposed to be the island of Dordrecht, and it's both influenced by water from the seaside, from the North Sea. Oh, sorry, wrong button. It's both influenced from water from the sea. It has a tidal level. It's been reduced due to the delta works, but now it has a tidal level of about a 1 meter difference. And it is also influenced by the river discharge from the rivers which surround Dordrecht. So it's influenced by both sea and the rivers. And it's really an island in those rivers. You can see it over here with the old harbor area here on the northern side, the urban district, and a rural part, and with some nature-based parts, which are the Biesbos, the Sliedrechtse Biesbos and the Dordrechtse Biesbos. And very quickly on the history of Dordrecht. Dordrecht used to be one of the richest cities in the Netherlands, or in Holland. It was also the first city in Holland which got city rights and therefore could call it a city. And they became very rich in Dordrecht because it was very well located alongside the rivers. And they had a certain law, stapelrecht. They were allowed to force everybody which came sailing past Dordrecht with their ships to unload their goods onto the market in Dordrecht, and then the goods could be sold on the market before it could be transported again back on the ships and further along into the Netherlands. And this made Dordrecht very rich, and because of this position next to the rivers. But in 1421, the St. Elisabethsvloed occurred along Dordrecht. It occurred in all of the Netherlands on the coastal area, but Dordrecht was especially hit very hard because this old city of Dordrecht is then only to be found over here. This part is all flooded and used to be just land, so ships could sail past Dordrecht and further along into the Netherlands. But now the ships could sail around Dordrecht, so Dordrecht lost its important position economic-wise. And in a certain way, you can say that in 1421, Dordrecht was hit by the worst possible flood, economic-wise and also damage-wise, that could occur in the Netherlands, and Dordrecht was a victim of that. And over the ages, Dordrecht reclaimed a lot of the land, and you can see that this is done in different stages, with making new dike rings around the old harbor area and expanding the land, claiming back the land. And that is how the island of Dordrecht slowly developed over a couple of ages until the shape it has at the current stage. But now, due to the big flood in 1421, it is surrounded by rivers and lost its economic position. The island, it's one island governed by one municipality, and it's only surrounded by one dike ring, but not the entire island is surrounded by a dike ring. So there are also areas which lay outside the protective dike ring. And the biggest part of the, well, it's not the biggest part, but one of the most important parts of that is the old harbor area, which is in blue, indicated over here. And I will give you a short notice of what that harbor area is, what it means for Dordrecht. Because here you can see the entire island of Dordrecht. You have the parts which lay inside the protective dike, so it's the embanked areas, which lie lower, about 1 meter below mean sea level. And you have the historic city, which lies higher, about 2 meters above the mean sea level. And you have the other outer dike areas, bigger industrial areas, most of them, and they lie plus 3 meters mean sea level. And then you have the nature areas which are on mean sea level, and that's why it's such a beautiful nature area, because also tidal influence still occur there. In the, this picture is to show that over here, this is the most of the urbanized area. You have here your mean high water level. You see that the main urban area inside the protective dike rings is lower. So if a dike breach would occur, these parts would be flooded. Then you have the historic harbor area, which is not protected by dike rings. It's about 2 meter 55 above mean sea level. And you can see that on these heights, in about once per year, floods occur. So the area is not protected by dikes. So if high water occurs, part of the quays, part of the streets get flooded by water. And we hope, and most of the people who live in the area are aware of this, and they know how to react to that and know how to live with once in a year of flooding at your front door. And then you have the dikes, the Voorstraatdijk. I will explain more about that later also. Is one of the primary protective dikes around the island, which is located at about 3.25 meters above mean sea level. And then you have the other areas which lay even higher than that, the unbanked areas. So most of the part of this is that the historic harbor area is not protected by dikes and can get flooded with a certain chance. Once in every 5 to 10 years, a really high flood occurs. But now, with the climate change, we as a municipality also have to take into account that these repetition times of when these floodings occur might increase. And people were maybe used to being flooded once every year, but now maybe they have to prepare that within 30 years they will be flooded like 5 or 10 times a year. And that's a big difference, and people have to be prepared for that. And that's part of where the municipality is working on. This again, the unembanked harbor area. But here the Voorstraat. The Voorstraat is the primary protective dike also for the rest of the island. But this dike is not very clearly visible because it's very old, and therefore the dike has been urbanized. People have just built their houses upon it. And this yellow dotted line is showing where the dike is located. So you can't really see it. You can see it in the street level. It indeed rises up a little bit. But a lot of old and also historic houses, which are protected by law, are located on this dike. So it's very difficult to do something about this dike if we would like to raise the dike. This is all the area which is unprotected, and there flooding can occur when there's really high waters. There's also a picture. This is the, on this side, this street which lays between these houses, that's the dike. And the houses which are located here are protected. They are inside the dike ring. And these houses are not protected. They are outside the dike ring. And yeah, well, living on the water has very also very much benefits. Pretty pictures of our celebration of King's Day took place in Dordrecht. Here, somewhere along this boat is our King of the Netherlands sailing around Dordrecht. And this is when the weather is nice, but it also can occur that the water rises, as I told. And we are thinking that now this will increase more over time. And then you get problems like this. This man is very well prepared for the flooding that occurs, because his windowsill and his glass, his window, is extra protected, so he can withstand the pressure of the water, which is pushing in on it. And there's some more pictures about the flooding case. Somewhere here is the house of the guy you saw in the last picture. And here's some other case which get flooded in the harbor area. And for these problems, you normally can just walk over here. In these areas, the people are responsible themselves for their own water protection, because it's not protected by dikes. They're in the unembanked area. People themselves have to take preventive measures in order to not let their cellars, because it's not going to get that high. Most of the time it's only their cellars which will flood it, or if they're very unlucky, situated very low, their first floors will get wet. The municipality does provide people who are living in the area with information about when these floods might occur, what is best to do for them. We also close some parts of the city and indicate that people should not park their cars anymore over here, because if your car is parked over here, it might get damaged, or people might drive into the water because they can't see where the road is anymore. We also provide them with sandbags. We put them on central places, and the residents themselves will have to pick up the sandbags and put them in front of their houses, like they did over here. This is really that people themselves are responsible for their own water protection. And they are used to it. People work on it, but we see that not everybody is doing it. And we also fear that within the future, if these floodings will occur more often, and maybe the flooding will get higher in some areas, people will be unprepared, and we are trying to make people think about it more and getting themselves more prepared for these events. This is just a picture of what the water difference is near City Hall. And this is again the Voorstraatdijk. This is looking from the unembanked area. You see that this is really a higher place. And I wanted to show this, that this is the Voorstraatdijk, and these are the houses which are within the protective dike ring. These are the houses that are outside the protective dike ring. And if we would not enhance the dike by creating a little bit higher steps, like over here, and these flood barriers, it would also not have been enough. The dike has been constructed on a certain height, but now with water levels increasing, the height of the dike is not enough, and for now we've taken measures which also date back a while to increase the height of the dike with these steps and placing these protective barriers. But maybe in the future we have to come up with new ideas to heighten the dike even more, because the water level is supposed to rise even higher. And these flood barriers, most of the houses, you can have these brackets next to the door, and the municipality and the water board, they practice it once every year, place then these flood barriers in front of the doors, and these barriers are not designed to keep the water out of the houses, but these barriers are designed to keep the water inside of the houses, because they are placed on this side of the house. So for us, it's not a problem if the water is rising into the houses on that side, because they're on the wrong side of the dike. And so long as this house is flooded, so long as it's not rising higher than this level and streaming over the dike and into the lower city area, very strictly speaking for us, it's not a problem. We also have some roads, of course, crossing along the dike, and there we place these flood barriers. We also practice it once every year. They are placed just right across the road. That's why we also only practice it once every year, because it's a hassle. But yeah, this is very necessary for, in case of a really extreme high water event, to protect the city which lays behind the primary dike against the flooding. This is another map of where these primary protection dikes are located. And here you again have the Voorstraat dike, the very much urbanized dike, which is very difficult to work on. But further along the entire island we have more of these primary dikes, but they are less urbanized. Most of them are not urbanized, so it's easier to work on them. And you also see on these dotted lines some of the secondary dikes which are still in the area. These are the dikes which were used to reclaim the land after the very big flood event a lot of hundreds of years past. Only this part was sticking outside of the water, and then slowly on more and more dikes were built, and that's how the island was reclaimed. And these old secondary or regional dikes can still be found in the area. And I'll talk later on about what the municipality also would like to do with these old secondary dikes which still lay there. As in the rest of the Netherlands, Dordrecht has to account for a certain water safety for all its inhabitants. And that includes checking whether your dikes are up to scratch, whether they should be strengthened, heightened or whatever. And currently there are some dike strengthening projects going on. There's one here on the eastern side of the area by the Kop van het Land, and some big one on the western side. Now I will tell you a little bit about what Dordrecht has done done in their work on providing more water safety for the island. And it begins, of course, as I showed in this picture, Dordrecht has to work continuously, just like the rest of the Netherlands, on their dike protection. But Dordrecht, mainly after the New Orleans disaster due to Hurricane Katrina, Dordrecht also thought about other ways of how to protect your island. And Dordrecht participated and also led in a number of European-wide programs, like urban flood management or the Mare or the Camino project. All of these are a project with different cities within the EU zone to see what we could do in the future to protect our land better against flooding, and maybe in different ways. And now in the new Delta program, with the 5 Delta decisions which has been made last year, we in Dordrecht have had the opportunity to work on that even more. And that's due to the 2 Delta decisions on spatial adaptation and water safety. And in the water safety one, they are now looking at another way of looking at the dikes. As before, the focus was on the strength of a dike and whether it would fail or not in an extreme condition, like on this. You only, with your flashlight, you only look at the dike and not on what's behind it. And now it's more of a risk approach, that you take into account the chance that your dike is going to fail and take into account the consequences, what it would mean if your dike would fail in a certain area. So now you not only look at the dike, but also look at what's behind your dike. Hospitals, industry, living areas. And for Dordrecht, that made the possibility to look at the multi-layer safety. That's not only working on layer 1, protecting your area with higher, stronger, bigger dikes, but also taking into account spatial planning and layer 3, emergency management. And Dordrecht started to work on this MIRT-onderzoek. It's some acronym for a very difficult regional and national government research. And, but in this research, we got the opportunity to look at multi-layer safety on the case of Dordrecht. And why Dordrecht is such a good case to look at this multi-layer safety. There were two other cases, one in Marken and one in the IJsselmeer Delta, I believe, I'm not very sure. But for Dordrecht it is such a good place to look at this multi-layer safety is because of the group risk that comes from the worst possible, de EOD, ergst denkbare overstroming in Dordrecht. That's if a dike would breach here on the eastern part of the island by the kop van het land. And then because of these old regional dikes, which are still in the area, the secondary dikes, the water would keep flowing and not overflow this regional dike, but keep filling up the entire urban area. Of course, it will not be instantly, it will take some time, but it's, that's account for a very high group risk. That's one of the reasons why Dordrecht is a good case for multi-layered safety. The other is that the Voorstraatdijk, here's a picture of this dike, is a very complex dike to strengthen because it's that urbanized. You can't really easily heighten the dike or protect it in any other way. And so if we could come up with an idea to work it on a multi-layer safety approach, we might have not to strengthen this dike directly on or fix the problem in another way. And this picture I borrowed from the previous speaker, Bas Kolen, because he is also working a lot with the municipality of Dordrecht. And as he told you, on the evacuation part, for Dordrecht, there's an evacuation chance about 10 to 15 people will, 10 to 15% of people will be able to evacuate outside the island of Dordrecht. And that's mainly because it's really an island surrounded by water. So we have a limited infrastructure and we only have some tunnels and bridges to get across. And these 3 points, yeah, some other points on difficulties of mainstreaming, smart combinations and added combinations, which have to be taken into account in multi-layer safety, but I won't bore you with that. In the research we done on multi-layered safety, we looked at the reference strategy about what would you do if you would not incorporate these 3-layer systems. And that would be just strengthening the entire northern part of the dike ring by Dordrecht in order to cope with the added group risks in this big urbanized area. And, but then the problem would be that, as seen here, the Voorstraatdijk would also have to be heightened significantly, and that is very difficult because it's such an urbanized area. So then we looked at the multi-layer safety approach for Dordrecht, and we came up with the self-reliant island, and where we focus on that if a flood would occur, we would be better able to handle it and better able to recover from such a flood. And these are then again the 3 layers. Layer 1, the normal dike protection. Layer 2, spatial adaptation, and in this case we will use, in the plan at least, we will use the old secondary dikes which are still in place in the area. We will use them to divert most of the water flow in case of the biggest and most destructive dike breach, and use those regional dikes to divert the flow away from the urbanized area into the rural areas of Dordrecht. And then in the 3rd layer, we would, as Bas Kolen discussed, focus on these vertical evacuation options for people because of those low percentages of people who can evacuate from the island. These are some ideas about using the spatial adaptation. If a dike breach would occur here on the kop van het land, in the worst case scenario, the entire urban area would flood. But now we are thinking about what can we do with the regional dikes, which are still in place, to divert the flow of the flooding and bring the flood into the rural area. And then that's also the part I skipped about mainstreaming. We're also looking at if you do such a very big spatial adaptation in an area, can you also make it even better by incorporating other aspects, such as a better nature link between the two biggest nature areas which exist in Dordrecht, the Sliedrechtse Biesbos and the Dordtse Biesbos. When we use this diversion of water flow and an overflow, we could use a spatial plus, so to say. These are a very quick recapture of what these things would do in the different layers, and we, as one of the only, there were 3 multi-layer safety researchers in MIRT researchers, and Dordrecht is one of the only one which got approved by the minister to state that we can, as a municipality and all our different national and regional partners, continue on working on this, making a strategy based on multi-layered safety. This is just a graph of the pluses and minuses for this multi-layer safety compared to the reference strategy. I won't bore you with that. And this is what I said, that the multi-layer safety approach has, for now, the research has been effective within Dordrecht. And now finally I will do a short, 2 short points on the communication with inhabitants within the municipality of Dordrecht. And that is that we've done a research on the subject of vertical evacuation, as discussed by the previous speaker, Bas Kolen. And we did it with a colleague of him, Teun Terpstra, also from HKV. And in this research we asked residents within Dordrecht about 4 different vertical evacuation strategies, and ask them what would be your preferred strategy. What do you think about the different strategies? And the 4 strategies we used were, of course, finding shelter in your attic. And it's good to know that in Dordrecht, within the urbanized area, most of the people who live there have about, when they fill in this overstroming app, they get to see that their house will be flooded by about 2 to 4.5 meters of water. And when your house has to face 4.5 meters of water, you really have to be up in your attic. That's the only place where in most standard houses you still be dry. The other option was, what do you think about the dedicated shelter location within the municipality? We also had using very much spatial adaptation and using the regional dikes, creating a strengthened compartment in which people could flee, just staying on the island, not leaving the island, but going in a compartment, which is sort of an extra inner dike ring, or the option of going into the unembanked areas and stay there for safety. And we had first a preliminary research on this subject with different groups within the city. And then we had a main research survey, and in the survey we also made a distinction of a focus on more self-reliability, so that we discussed that you are really very much on your own, you have to do it by yourself, or that we all would stick together, people would help each other, and the government would be very much able to help you. And based on these 2 different framing levels we used, we wanted to see if there would be any difference between what people think about the 4 different strategy options. And this is the result. Most people liked the compartment aspect, which is logical because it would be enhancing your safety and creating another dike ring. But the most interesting part, I see that the numbers have shifted a little bit, but the most interesting part is that outside the protective dike ring, they don't like that idea of choosing that strategy. Also sheltering in a local dedicated shelter, they're also not very much into that. And hiding up into the attic scores a 6.3. And but then when you ask, what if a flood event is upon us and you are advised to not leave the island because it's too dangerous. Also, what Bas Colin showed you before about getting hit by rising water in your car, then still 88% of people indicated that they were willing to then stay at home if that is what advised to them. And the main conclusions from this research for us is then that you can see that the dedicated shelters without extra services really enhance their fear and uneasiness of residents, and that they also are fearful and quite uneasy of sheltering in their own attic, schuilen op zolder, but that there is some trust in hiding on your own attic, because in the end 88% of the survey respondents indicated that that would be their preferred option. And for us, this shows that there is fear and uneasiness for people, but when you tell them a good story and really communicate clearly about what they're up against and what would be the best option, and in Dordrecht that is going vertical and finding a high and dry place, that when you communicate that clearly to people, they are willing to accept it and are willing to do that. And that's where we as a municipality really want to work on. And as a part for this, we did a small exhibition on what if the water rises in Dordrecht. And it was an exhibition to increase awareness of residents within Dordrecht, because even if you see that Dordrecht is a city which lives this close to the water and has the historic harbor area which gets flooded once in a while, we still find when we speak to people, we speak to residents, that they are not that much aware about what would be the best options for them to take. So that's where we want to come in contact with these people, talk with them about it, and show them the different options. And that's why we did this exhibition. We used a storyline approach in that. And in this storyline, we very clearly stated that what if a dike would break through on the western part of the island of Dordrecht? What would happen then? And we started this storyline 2 weeks before such a disaster, and it went all around until 1 year after this disaster. And some people were very much afraid when we told them this bluntly, that, well, your house would be situated very close to a dike and you would be faced with 4.5 meters of water. So you better be prepared and you better go up into your attic, because fleeing using the tunnels and the bridges is also not an option. Some people were very scared of this, and we did not want to scare them, but it helped us getting them more awareness. But most what we saw is that most people are initially scared, but then also take up the advices which we showed in this presentation. Yeah, these are some pictures of how it would look like, and we had a small attic built to show people what it would take and what it would mean if you would have to hide up in your attic, and that when we were there showing this to people and speaking with people, almost all of them accepted this and were not scared anymore, and thought more about what they would have to do themselves. And that's really what we like to accomplish as a municipality, and this worked. So at first we were more afraid that people would be only scared about this topic and would flee the exhibition and too scared to come back. But it turns out that if you do it properly and have a good communication, you can be very frankly towards residents and tell them what's going on in their housing situation, as long as you give them different perspectives and action perspectives to handle by in such a flooding event. So this was a very short case on, yeah, for you it's not short, but it's very short and not going too much into depth in the different topics. So if you have any questions now, you can ask them, but if you have some questions in about 2 weeks or half a year from now, just feel free to contact the municipality. Just know that the municipality of Dordrecht is really working on this subject of increasing water safety and looking at different ways to tackle this subject with regard to climate change in the future. So if you're interested in the topic, just give us a call. Any questions?